Things I gotta do. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with the boys, PD and Cal. So today we're talking about the Green Lantern. If you guys heard the news, Green Lantern is coming to HBO Max. They've been talking about it for the longest. Finally, they're going to do it. So what do we think about it? Is it going to be a hit? Is it going to be a fail? Who is going to be in this show? What are they talking about? So, hey, I'm going to push it over to my boy, Cal, to start it off this time. Give us a little bit of news, my friend.
Well, this should be a walk-off home run at the end of the day. They got a ton of stuff that they can mine. I know what's his name is involved. I know Jeff Johns is going to be involved in it. So you're going to see a lot of the more recent modern stories that were received very well. You're going to see stuff like the Sinestro War. You'll see things like Blackest Night. You'll see Brightest Day. And the other great news about it, there's a ton of characters. There's just a ton of characters that they can use for the show. And you don't run into the problem of having a race switch or gender switch. And, if they do it, I thought one of the things they didn't necessarily get right in the Green Lantern film was understanding the reason for the Green Lanterns. I mean, you can really play this as like intergalactic, cops. And, cop movies, seem to always work. They keep making them. But this is with sci-fi with the element of, maybe a little bit more Star Trek than Star Wars going with it. You can do it. I mean, there's just a very few things that you can't do with this. So I just don't see how they mess this up. I mean, this is designed to succeed. I mean, you'd have to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory to mess this one.
Well, they said the Green Lantern movie wasn't a success. I thought it was a decent movie. And so the question is, and that's why they've taken so long to roll this out. So I don't know. I hope it is. I think, like you said, there's a lot of different characters. They don't have to pander to any particular groups in particular because there's a Green Lantern for everybody. What's your take on it, PD?
Well, outside of the Legion, the Guardians and the Green Lanterns are the first sort of clubhouse of heroes. So since the TV show's a big clubhouse of heroes, and obviously Mark Guggenheim knows how to write that, it should be, a solid thing for them. Just trying to find some other interesting things to do with these, with a group of heroes that sort of have different takes on the same power. So there's things that you can do, and hopefully they'll be able to find some sort of human element to have in there too, to not just sort of it could just be going to the other worlds and finding some sort of human, even with alien characters, as you go to the different planets. But ultimately, it's interesting to see that they're trying to, the HBO Max was kind of running on the HBO part in the name more than actually giving you stuff. And it now seems like they're trying to, with kind of dragging in the DC stuff, is kind of say, hey, we're trying to do stuff now. We don't got these funky sort of shows outside of the Raised by Wolves series. We're trying to get some other shows on here so you can really look at a streaming service rather than go back and watch Friends and Seinfeld or whatever else they got, other reruns that they're dragging in as like big shows. So, it should be fun. It should be fun. Mark Guggenheim has a good track record of stuff, and with the clubhouse thing, as I said, it should be something that he could work into, having these characters that are stuck together in sort of that thing and going out in the world and handling stuff. So,
you're right. You called it on quite a few levels there. You're talking about Guggenheim as one of the creators of the whole, who kicked off the whole Arrowverse. Mm-hmm. He's done a great job there. Many different characters, and it's good you see Guggenheim moving on to a more high-profile position there at DC. DC is acknowledging the work he and Berlanti have done, basically. Then we also have here with the with HBO Max. You're right. What they're basically doing is just saying, hey, we created DC Universe to have some of these shows and stuff like that. Forget about it. We're just going to bring it all in-house because we can't afford not to. And so that's what they're basically doing. Then you have, of course, they only have another one of the biggest properties that they're trying to get up and running right now is Game of Thrones, right? They're going to do, I think it's Winds of Winter. No, I forgot the name of I should know it. But they're doing a new series that should be dropping, I think, in 2022, most likely. So yeah,
it's
HBO
Max.
That's the question. I think they're going to do general HBO to get through, but who knows what else they're going to probably do on HBO Max. They're going to have to probably put something on HBO Max to get people there, right?
That's the thing. They really, I mean, outside of the Raised with Wolves, which has kind of been, it had a buzz early on. And I think people kind of struggle with the climax of this season. But you know, it seemed like this. It wasn't. I mean, they were just running on name alone. They were running on name alone, and now they finally realized, all right, even though it kind of at the expense of DC Access, the DC Universe stuff, because they've kind of just snatched all the stuff from there and been like, oh no, this wasn't, no, you did. It was sort of a streaming service, and now HBO's trying to make it into a streaming service. Their thing into a streaming service.
Well, now the pandemic basically showed all these guys up, and that, hey, you have to have your business plan. Your business model doesn't work really in this particular type of environment where you have to get shows out. Netflix was very successful. They were constantly able to bring things in and out, over, and we pointed that out several times. And now Disney Plus, as well as now HBO Max, they're going to have to try to get more shows that people want to see, more event shows, most likely.
Netflix is a little bit different. Netflix had some built-in things to withstand this pandemic that most of these places didn't have.
Their model is different. Their model is not based on having things going to theaters.
They're a platform. They're not
right.
They're not a studio or a particular entity that's trying to produce their own stuff. They're a platform, and they had so much stuff. I mean, I heard about how much stuff they have in the can, just ready to go at any time. If you look at their top 10 list, what did they have? They had some show now. It's top 10, Evil with Mike Coulter, who played Luke Cage. Mm-hmm. So it's only 13 episodes, but that was on CBS. So they're over here showcasing other people's shows that already came over. They have their own original content. They're international. They just had a lot of stuff that was built into withstand this, where the average company did not.
Well, I only had to disagree, because ultimately, the same stuff that Netflix is put on is the stuff that HBO says, we're HBO, out of here.
Yep.
Netflix is like, yes. And then the other side of it is that HBO, mainly HBO and even Disney, they were looking at it as the HBO being the model, being like, hey, we're streaming. And even there was CBS, because CBS had the weekly sort of format. And it's something that I was kind of against, saying, hey, you don't always have to do like binge series. It should have been, you could piecemeal it out as HBO, and then to agree with the pandemic caused them to see the model that Netflix has. So that we'll agree on that point. It's saying they were going on a model that worked. They're saying, hey, every week, new episode, everyone come sit to it, and it's streaming now. And it's like, oh, now we got to do something different. Now we have to stream. So it's interesting that ultimately these guys are trying to step up to the plate to really compete with them, because they were kind of going on we're Disney and we're that, and we're stepping into the streaming thing. And then it's like, no, all that stuff you guys said no to, you said no, not us, because everyone has that. They go to all those places to sell their movies, and they're like, nope. So we'll go. You go to sell yours to Netflix. They'll give you some chump change, but you won't get the name quality of HBO. And it's like, oh no, now we gotta stockpile movies too. So.
Yeah, but HBO and those channels, they've lost billions during this pandemic. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So the only other option, I mean, they can't, because of the pandemic, they're unable to create shows. Because of the pandemic, they weren't to film the shows. So you're talking.
It's such a false. I mean, for me, it's such a false narrative. These guys, they're gonna get all that money back in spades. They know they are. So the fact that, we lost all this money. As soon as you guys can get people back into theater, you guys are gonna make money hand over fist. So.
But you lost 9 months, a year or two. You talk about whole people. What, 20,000 people got fired by Disney?
Make it all back, unless you wipe people off the face of the earth, which is not going to happen. Eventually, you're gonna be able to go to movies again. They're gonna make all their money back, and then. And
we're not disagreeing in terms of that, but now it's not. They're losing money. The theaters are closing. Mm-hmm. Theaters are now, what is it, Cineworld, who owns Regal, said that basically they're just going to go on a weekend schedule for some movies. There's nothing big coming out until Bond, because I think Bond was what finally made them decide.
Because you got a virus that you got to contend with, and that's just it. But these guys were making tons of money anyway that they didn't really they didn't really need all that money to function. They were just making money.
Bro, whether they need it or not, their model was based on that, and people were getting paid on that. So now there's nobody in the theaters. So thousands of people have lost their jobs. There's no one in the theme parks. There's no one making extra stuff like the
I'm not
clothing
talking about the theme park. I'm just talking about the films. I'm just talking about.
But I'm just saying. But they all fed. It's all an ecosystem, and the films and HBO. HBO is not able to produce. So for now, yeah, next year possibly, but this year it's a wash. They're not making that money right now. People have lost their jobs. So I kind of disagree. This is a big deal. So right now they have to show, hey, how can I pivot? How can I make money now? When you've lost, I think last year the North American box market made over $10 billion or close to that. You know, there's nothing happening for the whole year. What's the biggest movie this year that's been made? I think whatever happened in February was probably the biggest movie was made. What was it?
This is just a lot of hand. This is just a lot of hand waving for me. You know why you're not making money. This is not like, okay, we're not producing product and we're producing product. Nobody wants to see it. You can't put people in the venue you normally would. You can't charge the money that you normally would. And the second that you can, you're going to recoup everything in space.
Right, but that's in the future. So you have to pivot. As a business, you got to turn around and say, hey, I'm not being able to do this, because of this issue. So you're pivoting, and that's what they're trying to do now. They're pivoting to produce more shows. They're pivoting to more shows on their streaming channels. Disney Plus is trying to look at the whole Mulan issue. HBO Max is trying to get more and more shows out. You know, that's why they're doing the whole Snyder Cut.
And I know these guys are waiting for the second, okay, that they can put butts back in the chair, and that's what they're going to do. They're not pivoting. This is just stopgap measures right now.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens.
They also have to take. The problem is that, you know, when these things happen, no one goes into and say, hey, well, we're in a pandemic. They're just like, we're just running. The money is just running out of the system. We just lose the money hand over fist. Like, it's right. Like, well, we know nobody. The hard part is like no one takes account for that or gives an allowance. They're just sort of like, oh my gosh, these guys, the movie industry might not be back. Oh, I don't know, that sort of thing, you know. But
these guys, when they're like, oh, Broadway, you know, this may end Broadway forever. You know, we may never see theater again. Come on, you know, come on. You know you're going to see this stuff again. It's going to take time, okay? But you know you're going to see this. You know you're going to see this stuff again, and you'll recoup all your losses. The people who are losing right now, are more like the blue collar workers and such, who can't, they can't buy their time. In these businesses, these guys were making literally billions and billions of dollars, and they didn't really need that much money anyway to function. You know, they'll be okay.
One of the things that's connected but not connected, because HBO had, what was it? Well, didn't they have Swamp Thing on one of their channels? Was that HBO where they had Swamp Thing?
That was wasn't that DC Universe?
Was it DC Universe that had it?
Yeah, I believe DC Universe had Swamp Thing, at least initially.
So then they put it on the CW, and there's a buzz. It's interesting. It's just interesting that they put
DC Universe. You talking about Swamp Thing? They put it on DC Universe.
It was on DC Universe. Okay. It like wasn't too, you know, and I think it was canceled, but then they decided to play it on CW recently, and so it's like, I think it's opening up to say, maybe this didn't have the right launch in the right place, you know. So, and it's showing you that CW is still alive.
Then they messed up on that because I think because you had all these other CW shows and the ratings are not necessarily that strong, but they were getting all of these perks and incentives and these tax incentives. So running the show for them was making money, even if it wasn't necessarily high in ratings. And for some reason, Swamp Thing, they decided not to do that. Wherever it was being filmed, they were not getting the same type of breaks. So when it didn't, so after, you know, they were like, look, you know, the ratings are good, but we're just not getting the numbers that we need to justify filming this here. Now, of course, once you go CW, which is as long as you get 10 people watching it, you know, once a week, you know, you can keep a show on, you know, you're like, oh, wow.
That's not the numbers.
It's like, look at the buzz. We got 15 people watching our show. There you go. We have buzz.
That's not the
you are nuts, bro.
It's not the regular network numbers, yes. But
how many people? 20? Wow, we got buzz.
So no, but Cal has
times that 20 by, you know, how many million?
The economics of the shows are difficult, especially when you include the tax rates that they get from different places. So a lot of those CW shows are getting tax rates from British Columbia or Vancouver, where they're at. And I think Swamp Thing was an expensive show, and part of it, they were getting a huge tax break from I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina, one of the Carolinas. And when the state, I guess, rescinded or didn't give them the break, they just couldn't continue, you know?
Yeah,
So
not
when
there. Not there.
Right, they couldn't. But I mean, they could always move somewhere else. But isn't the same thing like what you had Supergirl in, we had Supergirl, they were filming in California, it was on Channel 2. And then all of a sudden, when it was canceled by Channel 2, CBS, they moved up to Vancouver. So they had to cut production costs and stuff like that.
It
You
was
know, they
never
couldn't.
canceled.
It wasn't canceled.
They never renewed it. They never canceled it. And I think they just pulled the trigger and said, look, let's just move it over here.
Right.
You know, let's just move it over here. They never, that's just one of those shows that, I remember looking for it. I said, was this show canceled? Was it renewed? It was never canceled. It was never renewed. They just moved it.
Yeah. And since CBS owns CW, they were able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, so, but the cost, because being they're filming in Vancouver versus LA, cost drops dramatically. So that's how you're able to continue for several more years, you know.
Yeah. Cost drop, plus you're getting the tax break.
So you can handle it, but you got to at least hold on to your viewers. So that's the key thing.
Yeah, because you know you got Supergirl. Supergirl goes for 6 seasons, and well, that's another show. But Supergirl went for 6 seasons, and you would think that okay, if you can get 6 seasons out of Supergirl, you can get at least 4 out of Swamp Thing. At least Swamp Thing has stories of his own to tell, as opposed to stealing everything from Superman. You know, we should be able to get something. We should get 4 out of Swamp Thing. No, we can only get 1, but that's because of money.
I let us there. My bad. I definitely let us there.
Yes,
Definitely.
yes, you did.
Well, we're talking about the sort of DC universe, and it's interesting that they now have this split of I'm about to say DC Max, and we have on the CW. You know, so it's an interesting split of things that's saying that they're still viable on the CW, and HBO Max is trying to make a name for itself, and yeah.
Probably they shouldn't have called themselves HBO Max.
They don't want to get rid of the Cinemax name, so they call themselves HBO Max. We know what it is.
Look, the whole thing there is that those of us who got DC Universe last year were suckered, because now they're moving the content that they said was going to be exclusive to DC Universe, particularly the new shows.
You told me to get it.
And they moved on, and now
you told me to get it though. You told me to get DC Universe, and we can split it.
You know,
you suckered me, Mars. You suckered me.
I think this is part of.
Just kidding.
I think it was part of them just saying, "Hey, HBO Max needs some stuff. Why do we got this other thing?"
Exactly.
Chunk. And they say, "Oh, it failed." No.
And they're right. Why do we need this other thing? You can go over to DC Universe if you want to read some comics, if you want to see DC Universe specific stuff. But the hotness, stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, you can go over here to HBO Max. That's where you're gonna go over here for that.
Are they showing Harley Quinn on HBO Max?
No.
Not yet, man.
Not yet, but I think it's going to move over. You know,
I
think that's one of the top shows on DC.
I don't have any interest in. I hear nothing but good stuff about it, but I watched one episode. I said, this is pretty good. I just don't care. Just don't have any legitimate. I just don't care. You know, saw the episode, good stuff, just don't care. So I guess we're done with this one, right?
Yeah, we're wrapping it up. So thanks everybody once again. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, comment. You know, hey, if you don't like it, say something. We'll like to know what you're saying. Spinnerack.
Out.
So I think we covered everything now, guys.